I'm gonna drink some whiskey.
Good plan.
Alright. It was July 10th. I was sitting in a park in Zurich. I took off my sandals and stretched out my legs, sharp, freshly cut blades of grass poking my skin. My legs were covered in a blanket of thick black hair. I'm part Brazilian and I hadn't shaved all summer, or spring now that I think about it. On my way around Europe, I was on the lookout for women who were just as hairy as I was, because there was some sort of unsaid camaraderie about those things, but I didn't find any, which made me the hairiest woman in the world, I was sure. It was hot and I was sweating. I had bought some deodorant in Budapest, but the language barrier led me to buy unscented, so I was hot, sweaty, and quite smelly. And the thing about Switzerland is that it's perfect. Everything about it is completely perfect. The train ride I took from Torino that cut through the mountains, the nice friendly cab driver who took me to my hostel, which cost $40 a night, the tall, slender, beautiful people who apparently didn't ever sweat, and the hills, the mountains, the blue-green lake with sailboats resting on top of the water that reflected the flawless sky. I didn't belong. I hadn't washed my clothes in about 2 weeks. My bag was tearing at the seams. I was the only single person surrounded by groups of young, toothy-smiled boys and girls, and mothers and fathers with their blonde-haired children. I was alone, and I felt shitty. I tried to read, tried to write, but couldn't focus on anything. I lied in the prickly grass, squinting up at the sun. Earlier that morning, he told me he didn't want me anymore. I was sitting in the lobby of the hostel after I tried to make myself eat breakfast. But I caught a stomach bug in Torino and I had been throwing up for 24 hours and I hadn't quite recovered, so I couldn't eat. I signed on to Skype, hoping he'd be on because no one else was awake in America. It was about 2 a.m. back in Chicago. Throughout my time abroad, this was the time that worked for us, my early morning, his late night. "I have something to tell you," he said. And as soon as those words popped up on my screen, I knew it wasn't something good, because you don't preface good things with a warning like that. I've been seeing someone else. My urge was to close the computer. Stop this, ignore this, this isn't happening. I'd be back in the States tomorrow. For the past 3 months, the two of us had sustained some sort of relationship. Looking back, I'm not even sure what kind, but it was something. And now that I was to return tomorrow, he was telling me that he wouldn't be there. At least not in the sense I'd left him. The first week of May, he'd accompanied me to Union Station, and he waited in line with me until I had to climb aboard the train that would take me away from the city. Earlier that morning, as we lay in bed together, I couldn't help but cry, knowing somehow that it was over. I was leaving, I wouldn't see him again. "Don't worry," he told me, "I'm not going anywhere." And I believed him, because believing anything else would have made it too hard to leave. I sat in the lounge car of the train as it cut toward the East Coast, and he talked to me for hours, telling me sweet, sugary things that made my teeth hurt. In Prague, I'd wake up to poetic emails. In Budapest, he sent me pictures, posing with his cat. In Paris, I had a strong internet connection and we video Skyped, having a face-to-face conversation in real time. And now Zurich. The city taunts me in all its perfection. Normally, I would enjoy the landscape, the sun, the lake, but being outside hurts too much. I don't think I can function that well. Out of obligation, I wander around the city, doing my sightseeing routine I had repeated in every city throughout my trip. It's my last day in Europe, and I feel as though I'm deteriorating. That's it. I'm swearing this off forever. No more, no more, no more. The smells coming from the bratwurst stand near the lake make me feel as though I may vomit in front of all of these classy Swiss citizens. I stand near a trash can just in case, just until it passes. I don't eat all day, which actually works out quite well since Switzerland is the most expensive place in the world and my European funds are in the reds now. I gave up on the day as the sun still hung high in a crisp blue sky. I retreated back to my hostel and joined the 2 Irish girls I shared a room with. We watched The Big Bang Theory, and then they left, and I kept watching because I wasn't sure what else to do. All I wanted to do was talk to someone, but everyone who cared about me was 1,000 miles away. "You lied," I had typed back to him that morning, sending words through cyberspace. "Don't act like that," he wrote back. "This wasn't going to work anyway." I hadn't wanted to be in a relationship with him. He had tricked me. I was confused. I had just left the boy I'd been dating for 2.5 years and had unknowingly fallen into this other embrace. I don't even know what I wanted. And for nights he told me he wanted me, just me, so why wouldn't I want him? In his emails, he worried I would meet someone while I was abroad. I told him I wouldn't, so I didn't. I saw him at a party a month after I returned, one thrown by a mutual friend. Over the month since I'd gotten back, he ignored my 2 phone calls and the email I had sent. Acts of communication he described to my friend as harassment. I drank too much gin that night, so I couldn't really see him there, but I could feel his presence like an approaching thunderstorm. And at one point we were wedged into the same room and he turned to me, stuck out his hand and said, "Hi, I'm Matt." And for days afterwards, I kept coming up with clever things I could have said back to him. But the gears in my gin-soaked brain weren't working properly, and all I could do was smile and place my hand in his and say, "Hi, I'm Virginia."